Hello, and welcome to Workforce Wisdom. I'm your host, Christy Bray, Chief Strategy Officer at PracticeLink. This podcast focuses on the latest trends in healthcare recruitment while showcasing innovative strategies, success stories, and fresh perspectives affecting the healthcare workforce. These episodes lead to in-depth, thoughtful discussions with recognized industry-leading healthcare professionals, exploring the challenges of healthcare recruitment and beyond. Whether you're an experienced recruitment professional or just starting out, this podcast aims to help you discover how experts are reshaping the industry, leveraging technology, and fostering inclusive hiring practices. Today's episode, From Outreach to Impact, Alan Novak's journey in rural physician recruitment at Ballad Health. Welcome, Alan.
Thanks, Christy. Excited to be here.
Alan Novak is an in-house physician recruiter for Ballad Health with almost 18 years of experience working in various roles in rural healthcare. Alan specializes in connecting with clients and recruits by getting to know them professionally and personally. Alan is a powerful communicator using his previous experience in the radio and television media, and he brings that to his daily responsibilities. Alan still reprises on his on-air personality, Alan Austin, on local radio station 98.5 WTFM. He lives in Bluntvold, Tennessee with his wife Jan and is inspired daily by his children Stacy, a travel nurse, and Benji, a student at the University of Tennessee. So Alan, you've been with Ballad Health for nearly 18 years, growing from outreach coordinator to physician recruiter. What has kept you rooted in this organization for so long and serving the Eastern Tennessee communities?
So I think it's really just the evolvement of Ballad Health. That's really been the big thing for me, and it's allowed me to grow professionally and personally. So Ballad Health is an innovative health system in that previous to Ballad Health 7 years ago, we had two competing health systems in this area. It was Mountain States Health Alliance and Wellmont Health System. I was part of Wellmont Health System as an outreach person. We had this merge, and we were, I'd love to say that, these competing health systems were, like brothers, and, but it was like McDonald's and Burger King. I mean, we were fiercely competitive. But when the merge occurred, and honestly, the merge was for the betterment of this community. Instead of an arms race, you merged together, previously it was, hey, I have a linear accelerator. Well, I need to get a linear accelerator. Now we just buy one, and we're able to reapply those dollars to other areas. And in rural healthcare, you're facing a lot of challenges. And so, again, I go back to the evolvement of Ballad Health and what it's become, and then I just love its innovativeness. It was a unique merger that brought these two health systems together, and now we're thriving. I mean, we all make, missteps here and there, but, we've brought a unique kind of model to healthcare in this area, and it's allowed us to thrive. In an era and an age of health systems that are closing some of their rural facilities, we're actually opening facilities. We opened a new hospital several years ago. We reopened a hospital. So we're blessed in that a lot of those dollars that were being spent on competition are now being spent to open up access points. And that's allowed us as, I went back to the word evolvement. It's allowed us as employees to evolve too, so that, we've come together and we've built a successful healthcare system, but there's still more work to be done.
Can you give us a little bit of a definition in terms of lives served by this new company? And then how long ago was that merger?
It was about 7 years ago. And you're talking a catchment area here, so we're Northeast Tennessee and Southwest Virginia. So if you're familiar with the Tri-Cities, it's Bristol, Kingsport, Johnson City. So you're looking at, proper in those three towns. It's a top 100 media market. So about 125, 150,000 proper, and then the catchment area, when you reach out into, Southwest Virginia, West Virginia, Eastern Kentucky, and then our more rural parts of East Tennessee, I mean, you start catching anywhere from 5, 6, 700,000 lives in this area. And so access points are vital for those folks. I mean, you live 2 hours from the Tri-Cities. That's a commitment for subspecialty care. So thankfully, in those areas, they've had their primary care, but subspecialty care has been few and far between. But because Ballad being the entity that it is, we've recognized that and looked at areas in which we could provide outreach clinics and provide opportunities for convenience for patients. And of course, telehealth too has been an amazing thing that we've have done recently. That's just kind of been a game changer for a lot of these smaller areas we serve.
Yeah, and I think knowing the geography of Eastern Tennessee and Southern Virginia, you get into some mountainy areas. The weather could play a factor in potentially, sending providers or providing staff to some of those smaller areas. Other ways. Tell us a little bit other ways that you have found to really tailor your recruitment strategies to meet those unique needs of those rural markets. And to me, I mean, some of the towns are larger. Abingdon, Bristol, these are larger towns. Mm-hmm. To me, the rural aspect is really access either to airport or then getting to a major metro. So we'll go back to the question again. So how do you tailor recruitment strategies really to meet those unique needs?
Well, as I mentioned, we've started taking the healthcare to the people. I think a lot of negative things came out of COVID. We can probably fill up an entire journal full of the negative things of COVID. But one thing that COVID did bring, a positive component of it, was we learned how to use telehealth. We learned how to communicate that way. And sure, it's not as as great as the patient, having their hands being laid on the patient, but it's still a component that we didn't think we would like, but we were kind of forced into it. And so, that's another thing that we've done. We've really expanded our telehealth services. But, as we talk about your question, tailoring recruitment needs, I mean, I think it's important to set the expectation. If I am recruiting for an area that is perhaps a little bit more remote, and you mentioned this is coal country. The backbone of the U.S. economy back in the early 1900s. It was here. Eastern Kentucky, Southwest Virginia, West Virginia, the coal that was being mined out of these areas. Well, we've had to diversify. That coal is not coming out of these mountains as much anymore. So, and so it's been a challenge. So, I set the expectation a lot with my recruits that I'm trying to recruit to these rural areas. I try to identify early on if they are someone who may be not necessarily from the area, but perhaps they grew up in Western PA or Central PA or, in an area that's perhaps very similar to what they grew up in, so that they understand the culture. They understand, okay, these folks that are maybe, they may be coming from, even though I'm in a rural area, they may be coming from an hour away. So, so I try to identify candidates like that who understand the culture. Sometimes you just don't have that option. So, but you want to set the expectation. Okay, listen, we're going to have you in a rural area, but I want you to understand. And, you bring them in on a site visit and you meet the staff and you meet, kind of show them the area. And then you also, let them meet patients so that they understand, this is the culture. This is, these folks, if they have an appointment with you and if it's snowing, they're going to be there. They are hardy people. And so, they're going to come to the appointment. They're going to bring you a pie for Christmas. They're going to bring you wine. I mean, it's amazing. So these people that live in these areas, they're so grateful to somebody to provide them, to bring them healthcare, to care for mom. That so again, I kind of go back to how identifying early on those people that might fit in that mold, and if they don't, then setting that expectation that this is the type of patient you're going to see. But I want you to understand they're going to be very grateful for the time you spend with them.
Yeah, agreed. I think you definitely serve a population it's not that they're used to going without, they don't have Target, Starbucks, things like that, but
Yeah.
it is definitely a different mindset for them. They don't see that as a negative. They have what they have, and they've worked really hard to be there and to live in those communities and support that. So it sounds like your work in terms of community outreach and that type of role, really helped and probably provided, a great foundation then for your transition into recruitment.
Yeah, absolutely. So I moved here in 1998, and I don't think I really left Johnson City or Kingsport all that often. And, I'd watch obviously high school football's big around here, and I would watch, these Friday night football shows, and they'd start naming off these schools like Rye Cove and J.I. Burton. And I'm like, if it's not right here in town, what is this? And so I transitioned when I got into healthcare in 2007. I started going to these areas and, started putting kind of my vision of them with these towns. And so you truly understand and you get an idea of, how big the service area is. And so, in my outreach role, I was going to a lot of these towns. I was meeting a lot of the physicians there, promoting the services and saying, hey, Dr. So-and-so, Mr. Primary Care Physician, I would take them a new cardiologist and say, hey, this is Dr. So-and-so. They're now doing TAVRs in Kingsport. And so, they enjoyed that. And there was always a gratefulness from that physician that appreciated this very busy, structural specialist taking the time to come to their clinic and actually visit them in their clinic. And so it helped me gain a better understanding of all these areas that were out here. And by taking these physicians to these remote areas, and these areas are further out, it gives them an idea of the commitment the patients make to actually come see them in the larger areas. So that outreach component was vital. So I got to learn all these communities. And, I love connecting with these offices that I would go into. So I would watch the Friday night football show, and I would see that Rye Cove, beat, Wise Central in football. And I would go into the office on Monday and go, oh, those Eagles, look at those Eagles, look what they did. And it just created a relationship just beyond what I was there for to promote or market or tell them about. And so I've taken that component of getting to know the area, and I've brought that to the recruitment world. And so I do that now with, I go over every CV, and I love to just, I know some people, they on their CVs, they'll just put, here's my education. And I love to go to the bottom and find hobbies, because obviously they've got great training, but I love to go down and find hobbies. I saw one the other day, the guy builds guitars, and I just thought that was such a unique specialty. So the next time I talk to him, I'm going to ask him about that, because I try to get to know the person. So when I was in outreach, I'd get to know the docs and the communities, because I just wanted to connect with people. I've got this media background, communications. I love it. So I brought that into the recruitment world just to get to know more about them, because they're more than just somebody who's in clinic 8 to 5 or in the OR. These are people with lives. And so I want to know about your guitar building, or you went to school at Michigan State, and I want to, let's talk about the Spartans and their big win over the Wolverines. And so details is really what I learned in outreach, and then just applying that now to recruitment.
Yeah. That's great conversation. I think that, anytime for recruiters, you find those little nuggets of information really helps when you're building those relationships. And I think a key piece of recruitment is retention, right? So you're really trying to get those folks who find that they love the community, their family is supported, their whoever it might be for them is supported in terms of that long-term fit. Has that been a successful endeavor for you to have this outreach background, spend the time, invest the time learning about the community and the people, to really pass that along to the physicians and those folks that you're recruiting, so that it is a long-term fit?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, my when I'm in recruitment, it doesn't necessarily end once doctor signs the dotted line. I mean, I text with them constantly, and I don't do it to be intrusive. I just do it to make sure. I want them. Listen, if they're a new grad and they pick Ballad Health, man, I'm as pleased as can be. If they don't pick Ballad Health, I'm still happy for them. Life is finite, and so I'm just here to help ensure that if they choose us, I want to make sure that they don't regret that decision. I want to make sure. So, recruitment for me doesn't end at the signing of a contract. It continues. And you're right, that retention is a big part of it. I often like to just check in on them. I'll check in on their spouses. High school football is a big thing here. I will often kind of circle back. And if I see in the newspaper that maybe their son had a great game or their daughter had a great game, I'll send them a note. And so I just, that retention piece, I've found such joy living in this area, being a suburban DC kid. And here I am 20 plus years later. And I just like to share that joy. I'm constantly interacting even beyond the signed contract so that I can ensure they made a great decision. And sometimes they don't. I get that. Things happen. Family needs occur. To me, it doesn't end. I could be in the hospital and I'll run into somebody I recruited and, we handshake or hug, and it's because it just doesn't end. I don't want it to end. I just enjoy the interaction so much.
Yeah, that's great. I'm sure rounding, it takes on a new meaning for you whenever you're out in the community or within one of the facilities or the clinics to see those folks. So let's go back. I know lot of change in healthcare. That is the one constant. I was taught many years ago in this industry. A lot of people are going through mergers and acquisitions. Teams are getting blended or changed. So as you've gone through that transition, and the merger that formed Ballad Health, how did your recruitment practices shift or adapt from, maybe legacy systems from both organizations and service areas, culturally or strategy wise, maybe a little different, right? How did you get to bring those together really to produce the success that you're having there at Ballad?
Well, it was simple, right? Because all mergers, when they come together, it's just peaches and cream, right? So, it took some time. Our department leader now is Patty Turner, and she was there from the beginning, and she has been kind of that constant. And, I am grateful every day. Patty and I worked together in outreach years ago. I think the group, as you kind of came together originally, and it was a little bit before I got here, obviously there's just challenges and, this is how we did things. Well, this is how we do things. And so you had to find that happy medium. But I will say now that we're kind of settled, and I mentioned Patty, she has been just an absolute rock. She's been here really almost from the beginning in the recruitment areas, and she has put together a great team here. It's a joy to come to work every day because Patty's created this great environment here within our system. And so, we have integrated teams, from the previous legacy systems. So I think we're far enough out that we don't even talk about the legacy systems anymore because we're all just Ballad Health employees now. So, but it streams down from the leadership here. It all truly does run downhill, and Patty takes her cues from the team above her. But we all have the team we have assembled here. We're all very like-minded. I think from Patty and from the rest of the leadership team within Ballad, it's like, hey, we've got an opportunity here to create something special, and we're going to support each other, and we're going to pick each other up. And I wish I was some sort of magic bullet that I could tell you that was the secret ingredient. But you just got a great group of people here. We found each other, and I really feel like our department now is really kind of humming along. And I would do anything for my teammates. They're just a great group of people. And, if you're blessed with a good team, that's really half the battle.
Yeah, agreed. That's awesome to hear. I think, there is a lot of transition in our industry, and you're seeing some Some organizations choose to outsource the work that you're doing or that your teams are doing, and then some providing more of that heavier investing on the in-house side to be able to provide tools or resources. A lot of it ends up being tech driven of
Yeah.
what you might need going forward. And early on, you said part of the merger was that realization you just can't outbuy and compete on linear accelerators or MRIs or robots. You could, but you probably would go bankrupt.
So I'll tell you, Christy, it may be a dirty word, but we are a monopoly, and we'll tell you that we're a monopoly, that Ballad Health is. But the reason that we were able to merge is because we took two competing health systems. We were able to utilize a law that was on the books in the state of Tennessee. There was also one in Virginia that was created, and it helped us to merge, and it worked around the monopoly, if you will. But because of that, instead of supplying funds for 2 level 1 trauma centers, this is one of the things I'm super proud of, and I'm just a small part of this. One of the things the state says is in this merger is you need to make a commitment to behavioral health services and access points. So as of last count, in the last couple of years, I think last 3 years, we've hired over 30 new mental health nurse practitioners or physicians, and taken those positions and put them in those outlying areas that we talked about earlier. And so we're now integrating PMHNPs and physicians, behavioral health physicians, in primary care clinics in these small communities that until recently had only ever had an IM doc or an NP. So that's something that I'm super proud of with this merger, that we've been able to meet the needs of those of people of the community. There's a couple other things that we're doing that probably aren't typical of what healthcare systems do. We have early childhood reading programs. I'm like, well, wait a minute, why is the healthcare system doing that? Well, we're trying to educate kids at a young age. And if they stay educated, if they're going to be educated children, they're probably going to be educated adults. And if they're educated adults, they're going to make better healthcare decisions. So we do that. Child care centers, that was another big thing. It's like, wait a minute, what are we doing? This is a healthcare system. But we've opened child care centers, early childhood development centers all over our service areas. And we've done that for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons why is, we've have nurses who, listen, I work 7A to 7P. Daycare is only open from, 7A to 5P. So we've opened up these, and we've collaborated with United Way and other organizations where we've opened up these early childhood development centers, and they're open longer hours to accommodate our staff so that we can, that's not we want something for our employees to be able to utilize so that maybe they stay out of the workforce. Maybe dad or mom stays home, because, we don't have daycare. So that, so those are the things I'm really proud of, that, kind of under the radar things that aren't typical things maybe of a healthcare system. But and we're not able to do that if we're funding 2 level 1 trauma centers. We're just not.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the focus on the retention for all staff there is key to that plan. Anything else, when you look at your candidate panel as deeply as you do and trying to figure out their hobbies or their interests, is there anything else that you kind of tag on in terms of that sticky retention point, to really help them thrive long term in a rural setting like Eastern Tennessee?
So we try to get them integrated within the community. So, community tours, and not just real estate tours. So, when we set these tours up for candidates who come in, it's not just, hey, let's go look at 12 houses. It's a full-fledged community tour where they take them around, and it's a real estate agent most of the time, but they take them around and show them, like in Kingsport, there's this amazing Y with the aquatic center that goes with it. So they take them and they show them these things. We do a lot of interaction with chambers of commerce where, we take them to the chamber, and the chamber will look at the CV before they get there and go, okay, this person's from Houston. Okay. So they'll come in, talk about how great Kingsport is. And then they'll show them actual dollars. Like, okay, this is how much, if you want to live at this level in Houston, this is how much you're going to have to make. If you want to live at that level in Kingsport, this is how much you're going to make. So, there's school tours that we do for them. We do the daycare tours. So we kind of always pride ourselves in going above and beyond than just sort of the standard site visit. I'll tell you another thing we do, and I don't know if everybody does this, but I feel it's actually something we learned from our outreach days. When we have a site visit, and again, maybe everybody's doing this. I know some people don't do this. And again, I'm not begrudging anybody if they are. We pick them up at the hotel and we walk them step by step through everything. And the reason we do that is because I want them in the car when I pick them up at the hotel, and if we're going to the hospital next, I want them to be able to look around. I don't want them staring at a Google Maps trying to figure out where to turn to get into the hospital. And then when they get to the hospital, where do you park? So we just like for them to take it all in. I want them to look around. I want them to see the schools. I want them to see the roundabouts. Kingsport, for instance, Tennessee, they love their roundabouts here. And so I want them to know how to if they're not familiar with a roundabout. So, so that's how we do retention. We sort of set that goal in the initial site visit and build it so that it's not just work. Because I think I said this earlier. I mean, they're not just an 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 person. They're a person. And so that's what we set when they get here. We just go above and beyond to make them as comfortable as possible.
Yeah. And I think those are really, really good tips for things you can do. And those little things matter when you're bringing somebody in. I think, we would use even a simple as a welcome sign the day of their site visit. Welcome, Dr. Smith. Just right there. Usually have, volunteers or are staffing that front desk entry point, little things that just make a difference. If you're touring them to clinics, let the clinic know in advance so their staff is ready and excited, because not every day is a good day in a clinic or the hospital, but just trying to kind of rev up the opportunity that they have to sell this place as a great place to work.
Did you know PracticeLink is not only home of the most widely used online physician job board, but we also have our own magazine? PracticeLink magazine has not only won several awards, including 2 ASBE Awards of Excellence in 2023, but it's also completely free. Over 375,000 physicians and residents receive copies of PracticeLink magazine each year, and you can too by visiting practicelink.com/magazine. That's practicelink.com/magazine. Thank you for listening. Now we'll return to the podcast.
So I know, I've recruited for some Western rural, some that you would call frontier medicine, and you get real far out there in the West. But what pieces have you found to be most effective in marketing, the lifestyle, the mission, the community benefits that we've talked about working at a place like Ballad or, even within your regionally to prevent potential providers?
Work-life balance has been something that I have seen just completely go from like number 4 or 5 on their bullet points of what they want to really number 1. I'll tell you too, and this, and it's a struggle too, because recruiting in Tennessee and Virginia, I'll have somebody say, well, listen, if I live in Tennessee, but I work in Virginia, do I have to pay state income tax? I'm like, yes, you do. Work-life balance has been big. And listen, I mean, the tax situation in Tennessee is tremendous, as you know. So that's another big one, that I utilize. And I mean, a lot of times in my initial outreach to them, specific for Tennessee jobs, I will throw tax-free into the title of it. I mean, you got to take advantage of it. It may not be, we've got this beautiful terrain here and all these fun things to do, but I mean, let's be honest. I mean, it certainly is something that we pull in people for. So, and specific to the frontier medicine and the ones that are further out there, I really try to highlight, if I can, the beauty of the area, because it's unmatched. And the hiking and biking here, the fishing and boating is world class here. So that's one of the things I have to do, and it goes back to work-life balance. So, what are you going to do at 5 o'clock on a Friday? I'm gonna hit South Holston Lake and I'm gonna go below the South Holston Dam in Bristol, where there's world-class trout fishing. So you have to be creative with those jobs and they're not for everybody. Some folks just like the big city, and that's, I enjoy it too. I grew up there, but so you just have to be real kind of structured in how you set things up to sort of catch. It's like fishing. If you want to catch a specific kind of fish, you got to use a specific kind of bait for the most part. Although there are some fish that'll eat anything, but you just have to be creative and structured in how you want to try and find the right candidate for a specific position.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great analogy. I always wanted to advertise in Ducks Unlimited or like Field and Stream. We had the opportunity where the recruiter in Upper Michigan that was on my team, we did do that. They were known for it was biking, and so putting some placement in some biking magazines or materials, because you're right, physicians are people too. They're reading and doing those things, if they're a foodie or whatever it might be, finding them in that spot, to just talk about a job is pretty cool and really brings that relationship there. So, yeah. So let's talk a little bit, the years that you've been there, 18 years plus, but, years you've been there, you've seen changing in the workforce. So not only the residents and fellows that are graduating, probably in the entire workforce, but how have the expectations of those healthcare providers changed? And what are you guys doing that might be unique or innovative to meet that? Maybe it's the work-life balance. Is it a 4-day work week? Is it a component of telehealth or a scribe or anything that you can tell us that maybe you guys are doing different that we could learn from?
Well, it's funny. About 3 years ago, I started doing recruitment about 3.5 years ago. And at about the same time I started, and my son will probably be mortified that I'm sharing this, but he was a senior in high school, and he was a pretty good high school football player, and he started getting recruited. And the timing worked out perfectly because I watched as these coaches and it was just small college, but I watched how these coaches interacted with him, and especially through like social media and things like that, and just touch points. And then, they start offering him positions, or spots to come play for them. But the thing that I took from all that, again, was and it wasn't a barrage of communications. It was like after a game on a Friday night, he would get a text from a coach saying, "Hey, great win tonight. Looking forward to," and I was like, wow, and it made an impression on him. And so I started kind of doing the same thing too. And it's just touch points. And so it's funny that I was able to take the world of college football and somehow equate it into physician recruitment. But, it is what it is. It's still recruiting. It's just, it's just a different pathway. So, yeah, it was actually, the timing worked out perfectly, but the place where he went to play college football was the place that created the best relationship with him through these touch points, visits to schools. And that's really what this is. And so I take that and I make the transition for what we're doing. What we've realized in the last couple of years at these touch points, it's like, yeah, okay, we're hitting them while they're in the second year of residency. We won't, we've got residency programs here, but maybe we'll wait till they get to their second year before we start talking to them. But you can't do that anymore because these kids now they're getting interaction, they're getting touch points with recruitment folks in third year, second year of medical school. So we've started doing that now. We've shifted more. So we just as a group went up and visited VCOM in Blacksburg, Virginia a couple weeks ago. We met with all of they were like first and second year med students, but they were from this area and had a desire to come back here and live and work. And so, maybe a couple years ago, and I can't speak to that because I'm still, still fresh in the recruitment. Maybe that was happening, but that's really the first time that we've actually seen and have had created an effort to do that. And so, we've got another VCOM event that I'm going to in a couple of weeks, and really just interacting with first, second, third year med students. It's crazy to think about that, but you have to. It's recruitment, as you know, is such a competitive business that you got to get them earlier. The other thing that I've seen from our leadership here has been a thought process to, okay, let's talk to these folks. For instance, we're have a urology program and we are talking to a particular physician who just finished his med school, and he's going into his first year of urology residency, and we're going to do some support, and every year along. So like, to me, it like previously, it seems like, okay, we'd start the support like year 3 or 4, something. We're starting it earlier and earlier because you have to. So here I go back to my sports references. I always remember Brad Pitt as Billy Bean in Moneyball when he says, adapt or die. And you have to, because if you're not catching these young men and women early on, you're missing those touch points. And just like those college coaches were doing, you got to catch them early, and you've got to be there, and be front and center with them, however that means necessary. Text, whatever, social media, LinkedIn, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, those are some great programs that you mentioned. I have done work with the VCOM programs, and just super glad with the growth that they've had adding their Auburn campus. They've hosted their national conference here in Nashville the last 2 years. So it's been fun to get to know those program directors and the folks doing that work. Being able to offer a financial resource while they're in training is really, really impactful. It shows your commitment to, investing in them, your belief in them, and it does pay off. I know it can be hard for CFOs and folks to wrap their heads around. Sometimes it's a small amount in the scheme of securing your talent for years to come. It is a very, very small amount that, it just is very, very small when you think about the investment that you're making there.
And if it's successful, it'll repay itself 100-fold. Especially recruiting in a more rural area that we have, you've got to kind of, I don't want to say take the chances, but you've got to take some measured risks. And make those offers, because it is what it is. I'm not saying anything out of school here, but somebody, big residency program, they grew up in the East Coast, and it's going to be hard to get them here. So if you identify candidates, again, back to what I said earlier about trying to find somebody who maybe has some knowledge of the area, or grew up in an area similar to here, or similar culturally, you can find them, and thankfully the first part of the conversation isn't trying to sell them on the area, because they already kind of know.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about tech and how you're, either reaching out to them, so tools and platforms, and then, are you doing some digital outreach? It sounds like you're doing some data mining to find out folks that are from the area, have interests, hobbies that align with what your communities provide. So how have you looked at that kind of transformationally, and the approach to recruitment today compared to when you started?
Well, obviously AI. I mean, we're just really scratching the surface with AI. I'm utilizing it a lot more, especially like if I have a job posting perhaps that's maybe been up there a little while and it needs some freshening. I'll utilize an AI tool. Who knows? I mean, it's a simple drop it in, and it kind of freshens it for you. And but I just wonder where we're heading with that. It's exciting. It's a little scary too, and some apprehension about it. But I do, for what it is now. We're using a little bit more AI, and I say a little. I just think as the days go by, it'll be more of an asset to us. We just hired, and thanks to our leadership team here, a recruitment specialist whose job is to not only assist us in a lot of our day-to-day activities, but it's data mining. It's going through, a current one that he's on now. We're actually working with the folks at VCOM on this. We're trying to identify the physicians who work for us that are VCOM grads. Because VCOM had indicated, well, we don't have that information. Well, we've got the information, because we can just check out, go to our med staff. And so we're working harder with data mining, trying to identify those VCOM docs who are here. And and then what you do is you develop, you sort of reach out to them. Then maybe you bring in some of these younger VCOM candidates and you get them connected and kind of a peer mentor relationship. Hey, here's Dr. So-and-so, and he went to VCOM, and, I know you're 2 years out, but let's get you connected. You're VCOM grads. And so a lot of that comes with the data mining, but Bryson's done a great job for us, just kind of digging through things, identifying potential candidates. And that's only going to expand because, I think we've just scratched the surface on information gathering. There's more to be done. There's more ways in which information is going to be at our fingertips. And so we've tried to be at the forefront with having a point person there. So while I'm, organizing site visits or, getting things ready for career fair, which are still very valid. I mean, those are still very valid options in which you get to create relationships with people, because I'm very big on, as I've mentioned, relationship building. And I think as great as technology is, I think this person-to-person, peer-to-peer handshake, fist bump is still vitally important. We have somebody now who is going to be their younger guy on the forefront, ready to kind of tackle and find those areas in which, and whatever they are and whatever they'll become. And I'm sure, PracticeLink will be at the forefront of whatever it is. And we'll have a point person there who can really delve into that while we're, trying to do the nuts and bolts of the daily kind of recruitment process.
Right. Yeah, I've been blessed with sourcing teams within our recruitment function. So, definitely those folks that are day in and that's all they do. They wake up in the morning and they start looking and digging under rocks and everywhere else within the platforms to find folks. So that is a great resource. I'm glad that was added for you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're very blessed.
Within the PracticeLink platform, we can help you identify those folks by their schooling. So we are able to pull that forward from your residency and fellowship aspect.
Perfect. That would be very helpful.
So Alan, as somebody who's worked in both outreach and recruitment, and we've clearly identified, a lot of similarities between sales or relationship building. How have you fostered the collaboration maybe between some of your other teams? So marketing, clinical leadership, maybe HR. I will probably throw in like the medical staff office. So how have you kind of really worked on fostering those relationships so that these candidates are successful once they get to you?
It starts early. And many times, most of the time, like specifically outreach. And because I came from that world and I worked with our recruitment team before, it's an early start. So a lot of times when physician comes in for a site visit, if the time allows, because sometimes these site visits are, you fly in and one day and you're out the next morning. So if time allots and allows us, we will get interaction between the candidate and physician outreach. So we'll say, hey, you're going to meet so-and-so from our physician relations manager. And their sole job is, and I'm always very positive when I talk to them and give them this hypothetical. When you come here, this person will take you out for 3 or 4 days, and they will set up a visit for you to be able to meet the primary care docs in this community. So you can leave a business card if you want to leave your cell phone number. More than likely, that primary care doc is not going to call you, but they have peace of mind knowing that, hey, I might have a patient that might need a mitral valve clip. I can call Dr. Smith if I needed to and say, hey, Dr. Smith, I've got this 92-year-old patient. Is she you know what I mean? So we said it early. Again, I think I've said that a couple of times, but it's important to get them connected with the outreach person so that candidate knows when they get here, it's not just you put on your lab coat, you throw your stethoscope around your neck, and you're just going to wait for patients. We've got a team that's going to get you out there and get you introduced. It's not just shingle up, here you go. So they're going to, part of their process when they're coming in and they're doing their EPIC training is they're going to have time with that outreach person. A lot of times too, we get them connected after they've signed a contract or signed their LOI. We'll get them connected with marketing so that marketing has an understanding of them. Because, the contracting process can take some time. So can marketing. So we get them connected, or we work through HR. It's part of the process where they get connected with marketing, so that when they start, marketing can have their Facebook campaign. They've already got their professional headshot done. They'll have marketing pieces or business cards that marketing is prepared for them, so that when they do go out for outreach, it's already done for them, so they can have something to leave behind at these clinics that they go to. So there's a real collaboration that starts. Can we do better? Probably, but a lot of it is really just dependent on the schedule and things like that. But there is collaboration amongst all of us. The credentialing person is a couple doors down, and so she'll reach out to me and say, "Hey, do we have this back on this person?" So synergy amongst all of us, and the effort that we all put into it is to not only get the candidate here, but also if they make the commitment to come, we want to make their transition into the physician part, which they've got down. We want to make that as smooth as possible.
Right. Yeah, I think those are great tips. I think that the other pieces you mentioned earlier is potentially some of those external connections. If it's the Chamber of Commerce or some other things that you've mentioned as potential touch points, and kind of just integration within the community at large, not just the hospital and the clinic area.
Yep, school tours. Like I said, tickets to shows or events. And so, it's just, I don't want to say you have to work a little bit harder. I don't know that that's the case. Everybody in recruitment works hard, but sometimes if you're, in some of these more rural kind of frontier areas, it takes a little bit more kind of a personal touch to make that connection.
Right. So you mentioned AAPPR and having resourced there, and agreed their conference does a great job of providing not only networking, but then the education so that we all get better, because we all want to get better to ultimately save someone's life eventually. But so what advice would you give to somebody who's just entering healthcare recruitment or the healthcare marketing, just healthcare in general? And maybe with a focus on consideration about rural or some type of regional health system. It's a little smaller, not in a large metropolitan area.
Yeah. So, you mentioned AAPPR. That was really when I started, one of the first things that I joined, because of the resources that are available. Interact. And it's so much easier now to interact with fellow recruiters now, on boards or within, some of the resources that are offered. So interact. My old radio days, I would put together like a commercial, and I would listen to the spot, and I'd go, wow, man, this is innovative. And then I'll be in another market, visiting somewhere, and I'll hear like essentially the same radio spot. And I'll be like, and so there's, to me, obviously with technology, there's new things, but the nuts and bolts of physician recruitment, it's always going to be the same. And so I don't think there's anything new or innovative, but there's always different ideas that you can bring from different markets. So if you are new to physician recruitment, interact as much as you can with your fellow recruiters, because they're going to have something that you haven't even thought of. And it's really a great way just to meet people. You can talk to folks and be like, they know exactly what you're going through. You had this doc, and you had an LOI in front of them, and all of a sudden they went silent for like a week. And when they go silent, that usually scares me. That's when my radar starts to go up. And so I'm sure everybody else who's listening to this is probably going to have the same thing, the old silent treatment. But it is nice to be able to interact with folks who know exactly the kind of things that you're going through.
Right.
So that's really the best thing. Go to AAPPR, go to the big conferences, small conferences, interact with people, young and old, within the recruitment area who you can share ideas with, because, having resources is great, but a lot of times I keep going back to that kind of personal touch, of which I try to bring to what I do. Having that peer-to-peer conversation, it's awesome, and you can glean so much from it.
Yeah, and I think it's a very unique environment where we are all competitors in the sense that we're fishing out of the same pond, but you do find really, really great folks who are willing to share ideas. And, maybe it's something you haven't thought of, maybe it's something it is, but it's a new approach.
Yes.
And so I think that piece of the association and that membership, it's just a very cool thing to get to be a part of, and I've been, blessed over my career to be a member, to serve within some leadership roles within the association, and then now as a vendor partner. So really good advice there. So let's talk. We're just going to wrap up about kind of the future here. What is most exciting for you? The future of provider recruitment, specifically maybe Ballad Health, or what you've been doing. And then maybe what challenges that you're preparing for next?
Well, challenges, it's just easy. It just seems like you mentioned, we're all fishing out of the same pool. And those challenges, finding subspecialists really, for more rural areas, that's going to be continually a challenge. And it's funny how the ebbs and flows go. I mean, you may have a ton of cardiology candidates, and then all of a sudden, it gets real kind of quiet, right. But then all of a sudden there's a bunch of surgeons around. So the challenges is just like trying to keep up, trying to do what you can to find those candidates, to place them here in an area like we're living in. And so, and that probably has been a challenge for a recruiter from 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just constant. So, trying to stay ahead of the curve is certainly, the big thing, and trying to find new ideas to bring people in. I mean, in terms of the future, I kind of touched on it a little bit, and I know change can be scary, but AI and some of the digital components and the information that we are going to be privy to and have access to, I think, is exciting. And I look forward to kind of seeing where that kind of needle moves down the line. There's just so much more to come. And, you just think back to, just technology in the last, your kids and used to play on a little Game Boy, and now they've got these just unbelievable games on PlayStation or Xbox that are flight simulators that, it just how technology is transitioning is exciting to me. And I feel like we need to embrace it and just kind of jump on and take advantage of it, because it's hopefully it's going to make our jobs easier.
Yeah, we might have a couple of those flight simulators in our St. Louis office. Not going to confirm, but we might.
Yeah, I'm shocked. I mean, my son has one on his, and he can fly an airplane over my house, and it's actually my house that he fly. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And I did. Something popped up today in my Instagram feed. It's around this time in 1994 when the first email addresses were introduced. It was it was a clip from the Today Show, and I thought back to that. I was in college then, but I thought back to that, and now, like, where would we be? Where would a company like PracticeLink be? Without that improvement as we go forward into the tech improvements just happening very, very rapidly. So
yeah. Again, I think in Moneyball, adapt or die.
Yeah. Very good advice. Well, Alan, thanks again for being here today on behalf of PracticeLink. Just grateful that you reached out and wanted to join the Workforce Wisdom podcast. For our listeners, please feel free to reach out with any thoughts, insights, or questions about what we covered today. You can email plmedia@practicelink.com. If you're a healthcare provider, physician, or other clinician looking for opportunities, and Ballad Health sounds like a fun place to work, please view their employer profile on our website, www.practicelink.com. My name is Christy Bray. Thank you for listening to Workforce Wisdom.